Okay. So I've gotten a request from a bunch of people to talk about overthinking and intrusive thoughts. So we're going to dive into that a bit today. And I'm assuming that you guys have some experience with this. Yeah. Just a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Just a little bit. Can all relate to it, right? We write an email and we reread it 1,000 times, or we send it and some kind of thought comes in. We might have some kind of embarrassing thought from, something that happened like 20 years ago. So we want to learn how to deal with those because the nature of anxiety itself actually thrives on overthinking and putting more energy into intrusive thoughts than are really necessary because the mind is scanning for things that can go wrong, right? Each time that you allow the mind to do that, of course, we're reinforcing that kind of pattern and it grows bigger, it becomes more of a habit. So it's helpful to understand the nature of the mind itself and why we have these kind of anxious thoughts that seemingly come out of nowhere, but really simply that our mind is looking for perceived threats and that it's trying to protect us from what it perceives as threats. And that's just, in a way, primitive mind at work trying to keep us alive. But instead of it keeping us alive from lions and tigers and bears, it's applying the same thought pattern to emails, conversations, social interactions, deadlines, you name it. That makes sense? You relate to that? Yeah. Okay. So we just want to recognize that the mind has the tendency to try to keep you safe by predicting worst case scenarios. Right. So we might call it, there's actually a name for that, right? We call that catastrophizing. Right? The mind will just go to, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I'm going to try to prepare for that thing. Of course, you've experienced this before that instead of that actually helping, that ends up backfiring, right? It's a unpleasant experience to be with. It puts us in a cycle of worry and doubt and analysis paralysis. Yeah. Does that make sense? So we're talking about intrusive thoughts today. One important principle here to get behind is that overthinking, even though your mind thinks it's solving a problem, it's not really helping, right? You just look at the experience of it, look at the factual data there. It doesn't actually help. And it actually ends up feeding more anxiety, right? So we can just come back to that as a basic kind of truth that the more that we overthink, the more that we catastrophize and feed that loop, the more that we feed anxiety. Okay. So we talked about this last week that what we resist persists. Yeah. So the more attention that we give to it, the stronger it becomes. Okay. So intrusive thoughts. I've just had a lot of people recently ask me about this and share that, oh, they have a lot of experience with intrusive thoughts and they're struggling with it. And so you can think of intrusive thoughts just as like random unwanted thoughts that just seem to come out of nowhere. And usually they have a sort of negative flavor to it. You might be driving on the road and then some thought pops up. What if I swerve off the road and hit somebody and crash? What if you're standing on a balcony and what would happen if I jumped? Or you have some kind of random negativity that crops up. Yeah. And sometimes they can be quite disturbing or shocking. Have you had that experience before? And why would I think that? And the truth of this is that everybody has intrusive thoughts. So even somebody who is calm, put together, very confident, it's just the nature of the mind for these things to crop up. So there's no necessarily rhyme or reason for it, at least in the beginning, that we need to really pay much attention to. Okay. The issue that a lot of people with anxiety have is that they're unable to let go of it. So everybody has these thoughts, but most people are able to let it go. They don't think about it. They just let it pass. But people with more of an anxious personality structure will have a tendency to latch onto these and put it in the perceived threat category. And they think this means something about me. This means that I have to watch out for it. There's something dangerous about it. Does that make sense? Can you relate to that? This perception that, oh, if I have this thought, it means something bad is going to happen, or I need to brace against it. I need to protect myself against it somehow. A lot of this moves into this cycle of, why did I think that? Does this mean something about me? What if I lose control? Yeah. We call it sometimes like the shadow of the mind. Okay, the shadow side of the mind. These are like subconscious things that we typically repress because either in society or in our own conscious mind, we go, that's not okay to have these thoughts, but then they crop up once in a while because the unconscious has no filters, right? Anything goes into the unconscious. So sometimes they arise into our conscious mind and pops up, and we're like, where did that come from and why? Right? But the first thing to do in order to break free of this is just to understand that they're simply thoughts. And this goes for any kind of thought, by the way. Thoughts are simply thoughts. Is a real sort of fundamental principle of Buddhism, of a lot of Eastern traditions, is that we don't need to put so much stock into the thoughts that we're having. So the meditation that we did at the beginning is a way for us to get into that orientation where we are the sky and that thoughts are simply clouds passing in the sky. The sky being our awareness without any judgment, without anything added, and everything else that comes into our awareness are simply like passing clouds, right? So, as a practice, what does this mean? It means that you can simply notice the thought arising in your awareness whenever that happens, right? And just visualize it as a cloud passing by. It's not detachment in a negative connotation. It's more like an unattachment to the nature of clouds, the nature of thoughts themselves. That we're not grabbing onto each one that passes and hanging on to it. Right. So something that you can say to yourself to help is just, okay, that's just a thought passing by. And it's fine, not an issue. Okay. So, what comes up for you guys when you hear that? Does that sound easy? Does it sound hard? What's your experience of thoughts themselves? It might not be so easy to just let it go and to see clouds this way. All we're doing is simply being aware of what's happening. So instead of having the thoughts take you, just let the thoughts happen and then come back, visualize the thoughts as clouds, literally. This anxious thought, this what if thought, this catastrophizing thought. Each one of those is like a cloud passing through, and we're not trying to get rid of the clouds at all. We're just simply being with them as they are. Feel that? Feel the difference in quality there? Doesn't matter if they're dark, light. The clouds don't convince the sky that the sky is the cloud. Right? The sky is just the sky. So that's your practice for the time being, is whatever comes up as a thought, you just visualize it as a cloud, let it go. For you, the practice really is going to be, can you practice letting the thoughts pass through your awareness? And can you let the emotions pass through in your awareness? And that starts to develop like a home base for you. It's like a center of gravity, like planets have like a center of gravity, like you become a planet and the emotions revolve around you and your thoughts revolve around you instead of the other way around. So in the beginning, it's like the thoughts run the show, the emotions run the show. You just go this way and that. We follow whatever's happening in that realm. Okay. All right. So take a breath. Feel your body as the sky. Sense your mind as the sky. Is so very open. There's a kind of detachment to it. Another way to say that is the kind of okayness as just a simple presence. And then everything else that comes in are like the clouds. So if you practice that this week, you just notice what how that changes your experience. All right. Good to be with you guys. Happy to have you here. All right. Good to see you guys.